New York is in the thick of the budget season now. We will be speaking with a political expert on the items likely to delay the budget this year. Hello and welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray.
And I'm Jamie DeLine. The governor kicked off the budget process with her executive budget proposal earlier this month.
Now, the next phase of this budget process is right on the horizon.
Starting in February, committees from the state Senate and Assembly will hold public hearings to analyze the governor's budget proposals. They face a deadline of March 1st to agree on revenue estimates.
Now, if they can't agree, the comptroller keeps the process moving with a binding revenue forecast. Negotiations will continue then. Lawmakers and the governor have until April 1st to come up with a consensus on the budget. As the state's budget director explains, the state is looking to collaborate on this.
Now, working with them, they always have some needs that are different than the governor's, and they're going to want to invest in those. We'll work with them. Our trick is to make sure that we're working within reason and that we're able to finance those needs. Resources are not unlimited. The governor is not raising taxes to finance those needs. That's where we are in this year's budget, and we're just looking forward to a collaborative dialogue with them when that comes up in the next handful of weeks.
Joining us now to discuss the state budget process and some key items on the agenda here, David Lombardo. He's the host of WCNY's Capitol Press Room. David, always good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Lots to talk about. Let me start out with the big one, which might be the New York City to Albany. It's a short drive, well, 2.5 hours, but how are they going to figure this out? Because Mamdani's saying he's got a deficit. He needs to raise taxes. Sounds like the governor doesn't want to do that. Where's all that stand?
Yeah, we're seeing a pretty familiar dynamic play out right now in New York City, which is we've got a new mayor looking around, looking at the balance sheets, some of which he probably should have been aware of, and saying, boy, I was left with a real turd sandwich by the other guy, and talking specifically about a $12 billion fiscal hole that he's facing. And his argument has been, well, I'm not going to look to cut the spending side of things, so I need to look at the revenue side of things. And with the way our system works in New York, if he wants to raise a significant amount of revenue, whether that's the personal income taxes of wealthy New Yorkers or the corporation taxes in New York, he's going to need his friends in Albany to act on this. And so far, the governor has been very resolute in saying, I have no plans to increase taxes on the wealthy individuals or businesses in my state, and I've balanced my budget, so we'll have to see where things play out. But a lot of this seems like posturing and negotiating, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe New York State finds a few extra billion here or there in its couch cushions that make its way to New York City in the near future.
And while they disagree on this issue, there are other issues that they do agree upon, such as universal child care, and that's something that the governor wants in her executive budget. Can you talk about a little bit about that and why this is a big deal for the state?
Yeah, this dynamic that's emerged now where they're potentially at odds over taxes is completely in contrast to where they were, say, a month ago, where they're singing Kumbaya, reading from the same hymnals together when they're talking about an increased investment in childcare. And specifically, what the governor has talked about is spending an additional $1.7 billion, with $1.2 billion going toward what's known as the Child Care Assistance Program, which is administered by counties to help low-income families access subsidies for care, and then $500 million going toward a variety of pre-K care in New York City, all the way down to what they're describing as 2 care. So in that vein, they've been on the same page, they've got the same priorities, and I will point out, though, that the governor's looking to make that increased investment without additional tax revenue, because the state has basically experienced a real windfall of revenue as a result of much higher than anticipated personal income taxes, and we're talking billions upon billions more than anticipated, which is actually going to help them close some drops in federal funding as well for the coming fiscal year.
What's going on with car insurance? Because I looked through our notes before this interview. You mentioned that the governor wants to cut rates. Is that something that she can do? I mean, do you have that power, or how does that happen?
So there are different levers that the state can pull to potentially lower car insurance costs. And I have to imagine you guys, much like me, have seen your premiums go up, and I don't know about your driving records, but I'm pretty clean. So yeah. I don't know what the problem is, and the governor says the problem is a couple different things. One, fraud, and that there are fraudulent staged crashes that are forcing insurers to pay out lots of costs, which causes higher premiums. And so she wants to approach this in a couple different ways. One, go after the fraud, try to deter fraud. But two, also changing the structure in terms of civil payouts, basically doing some changes to culpability. And if you're demonstrably responsible for a crash, maybe you're going to have a limited payout in the future. And also they're looking to redefine what's known as serious injury in state law, which could also limit the ability of New Yorkers to get what are known as non-economic damages in certain cases. These are pain and suffering types of damages. And all of this might sound intuitively great. This makes sense. This will potentially lower the costs that car insurers have, and they'll trickle down in terms of lower premiums. The state's trial lawyers, who are notoriously influential in New York, have said, wait. This is not necessarily going to mean any more money in John Gray's pocket or Dave Lombardo's pocket. This is going to be money into the insurers' pockets, and it's going to limit the civil rights of people who have been injured in a regular car crash. So what we're going to see in the next couple months is a confrontation of which maybe we've never seen in the state, the governor really going head-to-head against the trial lawyers.
Interesting.
And I know you covered the Capitol extensively. There was an anti-ICE rally this past week. Can you talk about that? And where does the governor stand on some of the legislation that these lawmakers are trying to push?
Yeah, this is an interesting area because there seems to be kind of a moving target in light of the actions we see by ICE around the country, not necessarily here in New York, but with the killing of Alex Preddy in Minnesota. I think that changed the dynamic of what people might be interested in doing in New York. So before that, the governor was talking about, okay, we're going to change state law so that you can sue an ICE officer if they might violate their law. And she's talked about expanding executive orders that deal with how local law enforcement and local officials might comply or not comply with federal immigration officials, whereas the legislature has said, at least on the state Senate side, the Democrats there say, we want to codify this lack of collaboration. We want to say that it's written in law. The governor, to her point, has said, I don't think you need to go that far, but maybe what we're seeing at the federal level around the country is going to change that dynamic. And it's one of those areas where I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so it's hard to predict what might be the instigation for even new legislation. We'll
have to wait and see how it all plays out. David Lombardo, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see if they get the budget done on time. Fingers crossed, right? The recent cold weather having a deadly impact, of course, in New York City. When we come back, reporter Henry Rossoff will bring us the latest response from the city on the colder weather, plus the latest response from the mayor on their economic troubles.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X, formerly known as Twitter, at WTEN.
Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. At least 10 people have died in New York City after being found outside in freezing temperatures this week.
The high number of deaths in such a brief period is raising alarm. The city taking measures to increase resources. Mayor Mamdani says the city is adding more homeless outreach efforts.
These efforts in the city are matching the response from the state to prepare and respond to the cold weather issues.
During the tough conditions, it's not uncommon to see a driver or two stranded on the highway. A new proposal has been introduced to protect the tow truck drivers who respond to those who are stranded.
Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara would like to see lighted move-over signs like these to be allowed on the tow trucks right here in New York State. While New York State already has a move-over law in effect, the Assemblyman says these signs could further help save lives by giving drivers who have been out there more of a warning about who's pulled over ahead of them. Visibility can be really poor in the midst of a storm.
Anybody that's ever driven through a snowstorm, it is hard to see things on the side of the road. Sometimes you're right on top of things before you can actually see it. So these lighted signs, they go a long way.
The bill was recently introduced, and Santa Barbara believes it will have bipartisan support.
Joining us now to give additional insight on some of the big news coming out of the city is Henry Rossoff. Always love talking to Henry, a reporter with Pix 11 down in New York City. Henry, welcome to the show once again. Let's talk about the thing that affects everybody, which is the weather lately. How did New York City do with the snow? How's the mayor doing with trying to get it out of there and the cold and everything else?
It's been a challenge, and Mayor Zohran Mamdani has really conceded that it has been a challenge, arguably his first biggest one since assuming office on January 1st. The headline grabber, unfortunately, down here in the city has been the 10 deaths of people found outside. At least 6 or 7, they're still doing background information, have had previous interactions with the homeless shelter community, and there really is a lot of concern right now about unhoused New Yorkers, getting them inside. The mayor has effectively deputized not just the whole outreach and nonprofit community, but police officers, mental health workers, anybody and everybody who sees someone outside right now, because as we know, it is quite literally deadly cold, needs to come inside. And the mayor's been catching some flack because he had promised to take a kinder and gentler approach with the homeless community, and there's starting to be questions about if even in just a couple of weeks in office, that approach resulted in some of these homeless deaths.
Yeah, one headline I saw was that kind of approach was like, let's not force people off the street if they don't want to. And maybe this is a case where when it's this cold, you sort of have to be daddy and mommy and take them off the streets whether they like it or not. Is that the criticism he's getting?
There has been some involuntary committals, but that bar is very high. It requires a clinician. The person has to be cold, wet, and basically unresponsive. And so someone that I think anyone would agree needs to be scooped up. So that bar is very, very high. Otherwise, it pretty much needs to be voluntary. Now, I just dove deep into the statistics. We had 29 cold weather deaths just last year without any sort of major snow, major cold. We had even more the year before without a lot of major snow or major cold. And so 10, while it is a horrible number, 1 is too many. Sure. By historical standards, may not necessarily have been worse than it was in the past.
I saw the mayor made national news, really, when he had a press conference, said, by the way, we're like $12 billion in debt, and we got to raise taxes on the wealthy, and I'm going to need people in Albany to help me out. We have a guest on in this show as well talking about he can't wave a wand and do this. He's going to need help from Albany. I'm not sure he's going to get it from Kathy Hochul. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, the snow may have been his first big immediate crisis. This is the big long-term looming threat to his entire agenda, where he plans on spending a lot of money on social services and free buses and expanded child care, all the stuff we've been talking about for a while. So he essentially is accusing former Mayor Eric Adams of hiding these numbers and not being more clear and honest about the amount of money the city was spending and the overtime that would be needed in certain departments, the spending on social services that was already being done. The problem is Mayor Mamdani has not really pointed to very many specific things he'd been willing to cut. In fact, he's said quite the opposite. We need to wait for the Wall Street returns to come in to see if the city gets more tax revenue. And then we also need to see if we can get a millionaire's tax passed in Albany, which the governor has said point blank that she will not do. The city council has been a little bit more moving toward, which, by the way, they're half the equation when it comes to a budget deficit. At least the last city council. This city council says it will engage in some belt tightening and look for efficiencies. And the mayor has appointed a sort of chief efficiency officer at all the departments to see what sort of savings he can come up with.
Usually when mayors or governors, when they leave office, they just leave. You never hear from them again. I saw Adams, might have been on Twitter, X, whatever. He really fired back, almost saying to the voters, hey, I told you were buying a bag of magic beans, and now it's, you're finding out that he can't just magically make all this money appear. Were you surprised at Adams and he kind of went back at him so publicly?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not the precedent that has been set for past mayors of big city, past presidents, for example, with the exception of President Trump. But essentially what he's saying is Mamdani is sort of using a creative view of the numbers to push for his millionaires and corporate tax, which he has said for a long time he would push for. That being said, Mayor Adams just says he flat did not fiscally mismanage the city. He brought the city out of COVID. He had to juggle the multi-billion-dollar migrant crisis. He put $8 billion in the reserves. And so Mayor Adams is just straight up disputing Mr. Mamdani's interpretation of his leadership. Nonetheless, numbers are numbers, and the city has pretty giant budget deficits it will have to solve, and that could be painful if services end up being cut, which Mamdani says won't happen. But frankly, $8 billion, $12 billion, that's the neighborhood we're talking about. That doesn't come out of thin air.
We only got a minute left, Henry, but it strikes me only about a week ago I saw a story floating around about how many people had left New York. I think this is what Kathy Hochul's worried about, isn't it? That it's easy to say, yeah, tax the rich, get those people, but if they take their ball and go home and they move to another state and you lose that income, you can really hurt yourself trying to do a short-term gain, but long-term hurt yourself.
That's been the argument against this from the beginning. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo made that case most notably during the campaign. When Mayor Mamdani has been asked about that, he likes to tell the same anecdote, which we've heard a few times now, but I'll repeat it for you. Basically says a millionaire stopped him on the street and actually called him out on this policy. He said, "I'm leaving if you do this." And he said, wait a minute. On $1 million, 2% tax that he wants to implement, that's roughly $40,000. And the guy said, "Oh, that's it?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, that's not enough for me to leave." Now, I wasn't there for this interaction, but that's sort of the expectation from the mayor. He'll raise this tax, he'll make the city more livable. The millionaire, that chunk of money won't mean as much to them, and he doesn't think it will have the impact. That's at least the mayor's response to the business community saying this is going to crush us.
Do you think we're going to see the mayor up here in Albany kind of shaking the tin cup, or will he be doing this from afar? You got any indication if he'll be coming to Albany and asking for more money and maybe legislation to change some things?
No, he's indicated point blank that he's going to come up there. He's going to do the very usual tin cup thing. I think what you see now is the beginning of the pressure campaign and the ramp up to him doing that, which will sort of culminate with his budget presentation in mid-February. And I assume he's going to put in that budget, more money from Albany, and then he's going to have to go up and try to go get it.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Henry Rossoff, in 6 months, it's going to be 80 degrees down there, but stay warm for right now, okay?
And then we'll complain about that, too.
We'll complain about the heat because that's what we like to do. Thank you, Henry, down in the city. New York legislators this week addressing nationwide outrage over the ICE immigration actions happening in Minnesota, their demands for federal changes, and how a standoff over funding could trigger another government shutdown. Also, if you got a comment or story idea, please tell us about it. You can email us at news@news10.com. We are on X, formerly known as Twitter, at WTEN. Welcome back. The Capitol this week, several Democratic state lawmakers holding a rally to stand in solidarity with the people of Minnesota.
I spoke to those who rallied as they called for ICE to leave that state, as well as a full investigation into the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Approximately 50 New York Democratic lawmakers signed on to a statement with over 500 other state lawmakers from around the country to condemn the actions of ICE and Border Patrol agents in Minnesota.
We demand that ICE and Border Patrol leave immediately. We demand a full and independent investigation, not just of the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, but others as well.
Many of the lawmakers at the rally say they want to pass anti-ICE legislation before session ends in June.
We need to take action. We need to unmask the evil that's before us. And then after we unmask the evil, we need to track the evil. We need to pass the MELT bill and the RADAR bill.
While the MELT Act would ban the use of face coverings for the federal agents, the RADAR Act would create a public dashboard sharing data on immigration arrests and detentions. During a separate press conference, Republican Senate Leader Rob Orr shared his thoughts on Minnesota.
People should not be being gunned down in the streets by federal agents. It gives me great pause when I see that. And I hope that there's a real investigation into that action. I don't want to lose sight of the idea that the operation, that the idea of closing the border and finding people in this country who are here illegally, especially those who've committed crimes, that is somehow, we have to abandon that cause, because I think that would be a huge mistake.
Stick around. We're back with something a little bit different when we return.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X, formerly known as Twitter, at WTEN.
And finally, in Empire State Weekly, before we leave this week, we do have to say a heartfelt so long to our co-host and Capitol reporter, Jamie. This is your last show with us today. Now, before we let you go, we pulled together a few moments from some of the big stories you've covered in politics over the years. Let's take a look.
There's no doubt that 2020 has been a difficult year. Now, coming up at noon, you can actually see me get behind the wheel of one of these buses. Lawmakers are still hard at work. They've been taking up budget bills throughout the day. He'd be stepping down, and that Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul would be taking over as governor.
She can come up to speed quickly, and my resignation will be effective in 14 days.
I just want to thank all of the men and women who serve in the Air National Guard and other branches of the military. Thank you so much. And I will say that getting to be a part of the experience of a boss lift and being in a ski bird is truly an experience that I will never forget.
And don't forget, you can watch Empire State Weekly all over New York State, stations across the great state of New York.
Done at the great state of New York. Copy, John.
I love it.
So sweet.
I never saw
Made me
you.
tear up.
Oh gosh. Well, you did get to do some fun stuff and get out of the Capitol.
I did. Yeah. Before I was the Capitol correspondent, I was a general assignment reporter for 4 years in Albany, and then I moved on to the Capitol, and this is my last show for Empire State Weekly. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Of course,
and
you too.
everyone here on the show, and thank you to the viewers for always tuning in and being so supportive.
And not getting too personal, you got some big stuff going on in your life,
do.
including a new arrival coming into your life and your husband's life.
Yes, I'm expected to have a baby in June, a little girl, so we're so excited about that. And I will be moving to North Carolina and
Big
to
stuff.
be closer to family, so it's all very exciting, but of course, bittersweet as well.
Well, we're certainly going to miss you, and it'll be really tough. And we won't replace you, but we wish you nothing but the best, and thank you for all your time here in Albany.
Oh, thank you
We
so much,
hope you
John.
come back and visit.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe in the
For sure.
summer, not when it's 20 below.
Yeah, with the good weather, absolutely.
There you go.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
For the final time with Jamie, from all of us here at Empire State Weekly, I am John Gray.
And I'm Jamie DeLine. John will see you here next week.
And don't you forget, I got to do this right for you now, to really give it gusto. You can watch this show all over New York State on Empire State Weekly on 10 TV stations across the great state of New York.